Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this special episode of Forum UnternehmerTUM's U-Talk. My name is Megan Grigonis, and I'm the Consul General at the U.S. Consulate here in Munich. We are excited to partner with TUM as we, the U.S. Embassy and 5 consulates here in Germany, celebrate Transatlantic Innovation Week this week across Germany. The German-American friendship has been at the forefront of innovation for decades, driving us all toward a more modern, sustainable, and technologically advanced future. Transatlantic Innovation Week highlights that enduring partnership and the importance of both American and German leadership innovation, the cultivation and protection of innovation, and more importantly, it emphasizes that diversity and inclusion are vital drivers of creativity and innovation. There is no better example than right here in Bavaria and its growing tech hub with companies like Intel, IBM, Siemens, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and many others. Many of these are partnering with us this week to highlight the breadth and diversity of the Transatlantic Innovation Partnership. Innovation is one pillar of a flourishing society. It forms the basis for a prosperous future. It transforms our everyday lives today, tomorrow, and for future generations. Transformation and progress, however, also entail certain inherent risks, as you know. We must be prepared for social, economic, and technological changes, complexities yet unknown, and growing international competition. Therefore, collaboration and multilateralism are more essential than ever for the transatlantic partnership, and our educational and university systems are a vital example. The concept of entrepreneurial universities is a major driver of innovation and economic growth on both sides of the Atlantic and beyond. Entrepreneurial universities cultivate ecosystems and a culture of innovation. They act as incubators for cutting-edge technology and form a vital platform for new business enterprise. Their approach to addressing socioeconomic challenges through the intersection of education, transfer of knowledge, and investment in research and corporate partnerships across the globe make them stand out as a motor of not only innovation and entrepreneurship, but also social change and democratic values. Entrepreneurial student exchanges and university partnerships, such as the one between TUM and Stanford's Designing Education Lab, and even many of the professional and student exchanges and programs offered through the US State Department, promote not only the exchange of ideas and knowledge, but they also help advance the cultural bonds between Germany and the United States. We are just thrilled to partner with UnternehmerTUM and Stanford on the topic of entrepreneurial universities to demonstrate the strength of the transatlantic innovation bridge and the unique and vital role these institutions play. I look forward to today's U-Talk and the discussion by our panelists from these 2 dynamic and future-focused academic institutions on how they are working to foster the transatlantic relationship and perspectives from the corporate and student worlds on how these contributions to the entrepreneurial ecosystem function in the real world as a driving force for innovation and progress. Thank you all for your participation, for your innovative work, and for your partnership with the U.S. mission to Germany during Transatlantic Innovation Week 2021.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thanks so much for tuning in. And thank you very much, U.S. Consul General Megan Grigonis, for your introductory words and for setting the stage for not only Transatlantic Innovation Week, but also for our very special event tonight. Our topic for today is entrepreneurial universities building innovation bridges between the US and Germany. In this session, you'll learn how entrepreneurial universities drive innovation and how we can foster more collaboration on the topic of innovation between our 2 countries. I am extremely excited to welcome a very distinguished panel of guests today. First, we have Dr. Helmut Schönenberger. He's the co-founder and CEO of UnternehmerTUM here in Munich, and also the vice president of Entrepreneurship at TUM. And he says, leading promising startups to success, inspiring people for innovation and entrepreneurship, that is his passion. As an aerospace engineer and investor, he pursues the goal of supporting scalable, high-tech startups, founders and scientists from the initial idea to the successful product. He is particularly focused on additive manufacturing, three-dimensional printing, and smart city solutions. In 2019, he was appointed honorary professor at the TUM Entrepreneurship Research Institute of the TUM School of Management. Wow, that's all I can say for that. Also, we have Professor Sheri Sheppard, professor of mechanical engineering at Stanford University. Besides teaching both undergraduate and graduate design-related classes at Stanford, she conducts research on fracture mechanics and applied finite element analysis and on how people become engineers. She's held numerous leading positions, such as senior scholar at the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, chair of Stanford's Faculty Senate, and as associate vice provost of graduate education. Sheri is a fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineering, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the American Society for Engineering Education. Sheri was awarded multiple times in recognition of distinguished accomplishments in engineering education. In 2010, she was recognized with Stanford's highest teaching recognition, the Walter J. Gores Award, and in 2014 was named U.S. Professor of the Year for Doctoral and Research Universities. We also have additional panelists. Caleb Boyd, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've heard others pronounce it Caleb as well. He is a Stanford alumni and investment associate at UnternehmerTUM Venture Capital Partners. He has a Ph.D. from Stanford in materials science focused on semiconductors for renewable energy, during which he divided his time between research at Stanford and at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Colorado. He completed his BS, Bachelor of Science, at UC Berkeley with highest honors in mechanical engineering and material science and engineering, during which he co-founded UC Berkeley's Hyperloop team and took time off to work in product design at Apple. We have Timo Bunk as well. He is also a master's student in cooperation with TUM and Stanford University. He studied engineering in his bachelor's degree, and after an exchange in Stockholm, he fell in love with the entrepreneurial spirit. He started working at different startups and joined the Manage and More program at UnternehmerTUM. And in cooperation with the TUM Entrepreneurial Masterclass and the Design Education Lab at Stanford, he wrote his master's thesis on the enhancement of university startup support in the fields of mechatronics and robotics. And of course, with the great support of Professor Sheppard. She seems to be everywhere. And finally, we have Yasmin Bauer. She's also a master's student at TUM in cooperation with Stanford. She studied management and technology with a focus on IT and entrepreneurship. After an exchange in Barcelona, I'm seeing an exchange theme here, she became interested in the topic of personal development and mindfulness. She participated in the Manage and More scholarship and gained additional knowledge in the startup environment. At the beginning of 2020, she started her own podcast, Evolve, on the topic of mindfulness and entrepreneurship, and has become self-employed. In cooperation with the TUM Entrepreneurial Masterclass and the Design Education Lab at Stanford, she wrote her master's thesis on the effect of mindfulness on founders of early-stage startup teams with, of course, you guessed it, great support from Professor Sheppard. She has recently founded her first company and is also managing director. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with the panelist via the link provided next to this video. And we hope you enjoy the great discussion and the panel ahead. Panelists, thank you so much for everyone joining this particular panel. I know it's going to be a lively discussion. So let's dive right in. I know we don't have a lot of time. But first, to be honest, a few weeks ago, I'd actually never heard the phrase entrepreneurial university. And maybe some in the audience actually aren't really familiar with it either. That brings me to, I guess, my first question in terms of what makes an entrepreneurial university and why do we need them? I guess Helmut and Sheri, let's start with the entrepreneurial universities theme with you, because both of you are integral parts of the entrepreneurial ecosystems at Stanford and TUM respectively. What makes these particular universities stand out as entrepreneurial? Sheri, maybe you can briefly comment and then we can hear from Helmut afterwards.
Thanks, John. I would say one of the hallmarks of an entrepreneurial university is wanting to be connected with the rest of the world, of seeing that the ideas and approaches that are born in a university are actually perhaps solutions to larger problems of the world, but then also wanting to see those ideas and solutions have a voice in the world. And so I think part of it is that connectedness, that we're not an ivory tower separate from the real world. I would say another hallmark of an entrepreneurial university is even looking at its own processes and saying, do we always do things the way we've done them? Or should we actually be looking at new processes for how we hire faculty or how we admit students or what a qualifier exam is? So it's that curiosity and questioning of what is and what could be.
Yeah, and Sheri, maybe to add on what you're saying, I think the core is that these universities, and I think Stanford is the prototype, and we also do a good job here in Munich. These universities are the epicenters for the startup ecosystems, and everybody knows Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley evolved around Stanford, and it were many Stanford students, professors, alumni who built great companies. And out of these ecosystems, more and more companies evolve. And if you're in Stanford, for example, if you look on the right side, you see great companies like Google or HP, and on the right side, you can see great investors on Sand Hill Road. And so it becomes a huge ecosystem. And what's great about our universities is that it's a cradle for the next generation of young entrepreneurs like Yasmin here, or like Timo. And I think what makes an entrepreneurial universities is then again people like Sheri, who is a great advisor and coach for the next generation of entrepreneurs. And yeah, it's really amazing to see these ecosystems grow and to see what great impact these startup universities have on the global economy.
John, I would also add, it's really interesting, and these are universities, which means they're not just engineering schools. They're really full service universities. And with the Managing More program that you mentioned that both Jasmine and Timo have been part of, it attracts students from all across TUM. So it's not just the engineers who are wanting to learn how to develop their own ideas and give them a voice in the world. And at Stanford, that entrepreneurial spirit is also felt among the engineering major, not only the engineering majors, but the English majors of, again, how do you give foot traffic to your ideas?
Absolutely. And Sheri, thank you for that. That actually leads to a great sort of follow-up question that I have for you. In terms of sort of, developing entrepreneurial universities and how that's done. Is that done? It seems like there needs to be a wholesale sort of culture shift, I guess, in terms of really changing the way you look at things. You mentioned, reevaluating how you look at problems and how you address these things. Is it done on, that wholesale nature, or is it more of, managerial policies and practices? How do you see that working out?
I think it needs to happen at multiple levels, from the top leadership, recognizing that partnerships with companies in various ways, whether that be direct research support, whether it be philanthropic money going to outreach in various ways. So it has to happen there, that partnering with companies isn't dirty. It's actually, you know, a partnership and an investment in the larger community. And then it also has to happen at I'll say the bottom, as you look at promoting people. And let's say they are actively involved in a startup. You're really looking at that as an asset to, you know, your organization, and not, oh, they're putting their energy somewhere else. So it really is a multiple level kind of investment.
Yeah, and so what makes it really strong is this triangle of having a great research institution, a great education institution, but also a great startup and innovation institution. And as Sheri said, they are all experts on all sides of this triangle, and you become really excellent if you are open and let people in from all sides, experienced ones, all persons, but also young ones, the next generation. If they meet and if they start to innovate together, huge new things are the result.
Helmut, that's a great segue actually to my next question, and it's directed to Yasmin, Caleb, and Timo. How did the universities support you in your entrepreneurial journey? It seems like foreign exchanges might have played a key role, but how did they support you as you decided to move forward with your entrepreneurial path?
Okay, maybe I start. Yeah, for me, like the most important thing is when founding, or like as an entrepreneur in general, is the network. So UnternehmerTUM gave us a great network, especially with Manage More program, but also now with the Entrepreneurial Master classes. It's so nice, like, to have the exchange with other fellows. But also now with the Dell, we had like weekly meetings, and it was such a great exchange, like always coming with your ideas and your visions of your thesis, for example, but also with other topics, and then have a great exchange with all the people within the meeting. So this was always so valuable, and I think this is something you can really gain from these networks, and also like from the university ecosystems.
Oh yeah, Yasmin, I totally agree with the network. The network is so powerful, and I guess this is especially one part of UnternehmerTUM, because you get the chance to talk to so many people and get to know new ones. This is, for example, true for my master thesis, where I had the chance to talk to so many entrepreneurs from Stanford University. But it's not only that, it's also the courses. And I guess Manage More is doing a very, very good job in teaching you the basics on how to start up. It does not really necessarily mean that you know how to do it, but you learned the basics, and you don't need to start from the very beginning, but you already have this advantage. And there are many more courses at TUM, and most of them are related with UnternehmerTUM as well, like the Entrepreneurship basic seminar, business plan basic seminar, or Think Make Start, which is a cooperation between UnternehmerTUM and TUM. And this, I guess, this really helps.
Great.
Yeah, can totally agree with Timo and Jasmine. I think from the Stanford side, so I didn't do any exchanges, but what I really appreciated at Stanford was also courses, and specifically having courses that were geared towards innovation in particular. So developing teams and encouraging those teams to develop ideas, and then also bringing in relevant stakeholders from government, industry, and venture capital into this academic setting, and introducing them to students who are 18, 19, 20 years old, getting to pitch in front of people who were, formerly really high up in government and are really high up right now in industry, and are VCs at top firms. That, I think, was something that I really appreciated out of Stanford, and the fact that people, faculty, as well as these other people, take students there very seriously. This idea that this 19-year-old could be the next Mark Zuckerberg or something like that, or the next founder of Google, is, I think, a specific mindset that you see at entrepreneurial universities. And then also this, just echoing off what Timo and Jasmine also said, this network where you see at Stanford, you create this flywheel of innovation, because you attract students who want to do entrepreneurial things, and therefore all your friends and your roommates and the people that are in your classes are all doing a startup on the side, basically. And so it becomes really highly prized and valued. And then, yeah, that ends up generating more great entrepreneurs and then attracting more entrepreneurs. And I think we're starting to see that a lot at TUM right now. We're starting to see the next generation. We're starting to see the startup founders who have gone on to make unicorns coming back and funding and giving advice and mentoring the students who are going to be the next wave.
All I can say is I wish I would have gone to Stanford or to TUM, but it sounds like these are great opportunities, and especially as all three of you brought up the importance of the network. We are currently celebrating here in Germany Transatlantic Innovation Week, and one of its goals is sort of highlighting those networks and the innovative partnerships we have across sectors, whether it's engineering and aerospace to advanced technologies, the green economy, and even military cooperation for that matter. And I'd like to shift slightly, maybe more to that, and talk about why is international cooperation especially important when it comes to innovation? Helmut and Sheri, maybe to you, what started the connection between TUM and Stanford, and how has that really developed over the relationship?
What's your story, Helmut?
So I think it's all about people, and so I had the luck to meet Sheri and her husband, Ed Carrier, who's also a Stanford professor and is in the fields of robotics, a great lecturer. And so there was this a great connection that there were so many ideas we shared, and then we thought, okay, let's not only spend together but also get the next generation into the game. And then Sheri was so nice to say, okay, let's organize an exchange program and see if we can get some good students over to Stanford and vice versa. And now I think, Sheri, this is going for 10 or 15 years now.
Yes, it's been going for a while. And actually the initial connection was a former Ph.D. student of mine who's from Singapore, who ended up, after finishing his Ph.D., working on how do you design a better crash helmet for bicyclists, ended up living in Munich, marrying a German woman, and at one point said to me, Sheri, you need to meet this person named Helmut. Helmut, you need to meet these people, Sheri and Ed. So Helmut came over and toured our facilities, and that really started a set of conversations of what could we do together that's actually stronger and more interesting than what we can do separately. And I think we early in our discussions really identified we all are so committed to students and their development. And so really thinking about ways to add to students' educational value through some sort of exchange, and really recognizing that when you visit somebody for a week or so, it's just a visit. But if you come over and spend 3 to 6 months in a different environment, you really start to see what's similar, but really what's different, and what you can borrow and what you can add to the place that you're residing in. So a people exchange really became a central focus for us. And I really find the background that Helmut and UnternehmerTUM helped the students develop in this Manage and More program really already, they have some knowledge of and commitment to design thinking, and they can be, hit the ground running here and really tap into what's different here. I would say Jasmine and Timo had to be particularly, though, entrepreneurial, because they've yet to come over for their Stanford visit. So they figured out a way to still do their master's work, with Stanford being a big component of that. And hopefully they're coming to be with us physically in the fall.
Let's hope. Sheri, you sort of touched on this in terms of talking about people exchanges and really the overlap there and learning from each other. What have the two sort of innovation ecosystems learned from each other? Have there been large milestones in the relationship? Have things changed because of an influence from TUM or from others? Has that relationship changed, or have there been significant milestones?
I think what's so fantastic is that it's a growing ecosystem, and I think Timo, Yasmin, and Caleb are great examples and also great role models, because they not only profit from this ecosystem, but they also contribute a lot to it. And this is what Caleb said before. So it's not only consuming it, but it's building it. Okay, and so there are so many stories around and so many projects and so many connections. For example, one of our former exchange student is Andreas Kunze, who was with Sheri about 5 or 10 years ago, and he's now one of the greatest entrepreneurs in Munich with his company Konux, and he has great Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and VCs as VC funds like NEA or Andy von Bechtolsheim. And so out of all these connections, many more connections are growing, and it's an ever-growing ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. I would give a few other examples. For instance, 2 of the students who came maybe 6 or 7 years ago looked and tried to understand our makerspace here, which was really has a long history, well-developed history, and made that the focus of what happens in that lab and how do people create in that space. That became knowledge that went back to UnternehmerTUM. Now, Jasmine's recent master's thesis looks at how mindfulness can actually help you be calmer as a startup in that founding world, and really maybe lower your own blood pressure as well as make you a better team player. She'll be coming over to Stanford in the fall, and we're going to be experimenting with her research findings on a larger population. Timo's work was looking at a technical course that Ed Carrier teaches here at Stanford that seems to have a lot of founders that come out of it. And so really taking that understanding, putting that back into the TUM environment, as well as having us say, what else should we be doing to support these highly technically educated people who want to be founders?
For Yasmin, Caleb, and Timo, I'd be interested to know, especially over the past year, and of course the complexities with COVID and not being able to have that, physical presence on campus. If you could talk a little bit about your experience and about sort of the connections that you have and that you've used over the past year to move yourselves forward. Maybe Jasmine, maybe we'll start with you.
Okay. So what was really great, we were not able to be physical at Stanford campus, but as I already mentioned, the weekly meetings especially, but also the meetings with the Entrepreneurial Masterclass. So it was like an ongoing process each week, and that was so helpful because, as I said, you got feedback on your ideas, on your topics, and you always got 2 perspectives because. As Sheri and I worked through my thesis, we sometimes had different wordings where we said, okay, maybe Germany thinks different about this word, for example, failure. Is it different in Germany than to the United States? So how do you interpret failure in general? So this was so nice to see, to get different viewpoints and to think from another perspective on your topic.
I totally agree, Yasmin. And I would add to that, I really love the research team, and I never had the feeling of being part of such a lab team and actually working on a project together, exchanging so much, because at least for me, my bachelor thesis felt like a solo task. I did that alone, but for my master thesis, it was great because you have so many people who are actually giving you advice, giving you feedback, and you can think together and share that. And I guess that's something I took away, and I think that's something we should have in Munich as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think on my side have obviously benefited from the connection here, coming, I think, a different direction. So I think Timo and Yasmin have gone to Stanford from TUM. I came from Stanford and started working here at UnternehmerTUM and UBC Partners. And I think on my side, I'm just trying to improve those connections. I think, but we see the step afterwards. So between potential startups, finding places potentially for TUM students to work at startups in the States, We're finding potential ways for VCs in the Silicon Valley and here to be able to interact on a more personal level and more frequently. So yeah, excited about the next years to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're sort of running short on time, unfortunately. So one sort of final question, maybe to Helmut and Sheri, talking about the future, Caleb, that you just brought up. What do you see as the next step? The next steps in the partnership, the next step in building the innovation bridge between UnternehmerTUM and Stanford? Are there any big plans? Are we going to break any news here, or?
Sheri, would you like to start, or shall I?
Well, you know, I think continuing the student exchange, I counted the numbers. There have been 40 students from the Manage More program who've come on over to do their master's thesis. And so, you know, figuring out how to keep that vital and alive, and actually identifying problems that both sides or the whole team is interested in finding the answer to. And I think Timo's work is a great example of saying, you know, how do we define a research project that we're all hungry to know the answers to? So I would say that will be one dimension of it. I mean, it would be interesting, and I think very good to see it also extend to the PhD student level, where, you know, someone is involved in the longer term. So Helmut, how about for you, breaking news?
Yeah, so I think Sheri summarized the university level great, and but our impact is more, and it's also beyond the campus. And if you look at the startups, so there are so many joint startup projects going on between Stanford students and TUM students. So this is great, and all these companies are quite successful. And then you have also the established companies which are playing a huge role. So, for example, great news here in Munich was that not only Google is building here a huge new site, but also Apple is building a huge site. So also on the established company side, there's a huge movement. And if you look at the investors, it's the same. So we have a strong Silicon Valley investors in our ecosystem, with companies like, with VCs like NEA who co-invest. And if you look at the numbers, it's really incredible. So in the last 2 years, our TUM and UnternehmerTUM startups got per year over $1 billion US dollars investments. And much of the money is actually coming from Silicon Valley VC companies. And so it's really a driving force. And again, also thank you to the US consulate for really also building the bridge. And I think the Transatlantic Innovation Week is also a great event to celebrate all these successes, to make them more transparent and bring people together. And so behind us, there are hundreds and hundreds of people from the university, from the startups, from the established companies, from the VC companies who are eager to do more. So I think we will hear hundreds and hundreds of great new success stories in the next weeks, months, and years, and joint success stories.
Yeah. And, you know, and John, I think there's a whole new world to be explored and designed related, for instance, even to the nature of work. I think we've all learned a lot about what is possible and not possible in terms of being in an office building or not being in an office building. And I think, you know, how do you maintain innovation now with new norms of what's the nature of work? So, you know, I'm looking forward to more students to be working with, to be researching this, both in the startup scene, but, you know, Helmut was mentioning larger organizations. And I, you know, have a research project with Ford, for instance, that really want to inspire more innovative entrepreneurial thinking among its 10,000 product development engineers. So who now are even more distributed. So there are a lot of good, juicy problems for us to tackle together.
Absolutely, it's an exciting time, and one thing, talking about news, Helmut, you deserve some credit today. I heard in the news about Isar Aerospace making the news today about them finally rolling off their rocket engine from their in-house manufacturing. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to UnternehmerTUM, because I know they're connected with you all at UnternehmerTUM. So again, please feel free to contact all of our guests, all of our panelists, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Just to sort of summarize what we talked about, I think entrepreneurship in higher education is now recognized as very, very important, almost vital, and a major driver underpinning innovation. Sheri, you said it best. I think it's an exciting time because, almost a forced innovation about how you think about work, even how you move forward in redefining that and looking at really innovative ways to deal with some of the world's most pressing problems. And I think from the transatlantic relationship aspect, that is no more clear than over the past year. Thank you again to all of our panelists. It was a fascinating discussion, especially for someone as a novice to entrepreneurial universities. But thank you for your input, and all of your insights to this particular topic. For everyone else, if you like the talk, please subscribe to the UnternehmerTUM newsletter. We'll keep you posted on the next session there, or follow the UTalk playlist on YouTube and get automatically notified on the latest video uploads. Also, please continue to follow the U.S. Consulate. I have to make a plug, the U.S. mission to Germany, and all of our corporate and academic partners like UnternehmerTUM all week for updates on Transatlantic Innovation Week. It's, again, an exciting time, and thank you all so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to have you as our guests.
Thank you.